Well, it appears that another long-lost piece of art has been found. This time a Rembrandt turned up in some guy's art-filled attic in Maine.
I wish I was in Maine with an attic full of art, one of which happens to be a priceless Rembrandt. But hey, some people live charmed lives. The rest of us, well, that's why we have rum.
Rembrandt's portrait of a girl was found by appraisers making a house call to an estate. Portrait wasn't really lost. It's been in the same family for over a century. But this is the first time it's been seen in public since 1970 in Philadelphia. It sold at auction for a cool $1.4 million to a European collector on August 24th.
Man. If I could get $1.4 million for a piece of art, I could probably pay my utility bills, buy groceries for the month, and still have enough money left over for a pack of cigarettes and a bottle of rum. Good rum. Not that bottom shelf bullshit either.
Now, I don't know the guy's financial situation prior to the auction, but something tells me someone with a painting by Rembrandt hanging out in their attic with other objects de art probably wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. Whatever. I'll just keep plugging away at my own artwork in a vain effort to simply survive while fielding complaints like,
why is it taking so long? $500 for a painting with 20 ships on a 40 by 50 inch nautical chart. That's too expensive. Well, I'm not charging shipping. Why do I have to frame it myself? Whoever tells you it's easy to be an artist, never been an artist.
I'm not bitter. Don't worry, maybe my artwork will fetch a tidy sum once I'm dead, and it doesn't matter anymore. You know, I need a drink. Let's go. Well, turns out I didn't have to go very far. Good evening, bacchanalian barflies, lushes, alcohol sponges and debauchees, and everyone else.
Except members of the temperance movement. Fuck those guys.
Yeah, fuck those guys. Welcome to another episode of Before the Mask, a show where I bring you refreshing cocktails and then tell you true stories that skirt the edges of unbelievable ridiculousness while I drink them all alone. 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 Joke's on you, life. I like drinking alone.
Well, it's way less expensive than going out, and it cuts down on the awkwardness of trying to hold a conversation after having drank an entire bottle of rum.
I'm Aaron Burks, your trusty guide through murky cocktail histories and over-the-top memories of when life was exciting. Before we go any further, please make sure to like and subscribe. And please, Share with your friends.
Misery loves company.
Tonight we're partaking in Planner's Punch. And I know you're probably thinking, but Boats, you already did a Planner's Punch episode.
Yeah, but Boats, you already did an episode of Planner's. Yeah, shut up. It's my show.
Well, that may be true, but Planner's Punch is not so much a drink as it is a whole class of drinks, like sours and swizzles or flips and nogs. It's really an idea that can be riffed on depending on your taste. On the last episode for Planner's Punch, way back in Season 1, Episode 33, I gave you a recipe out of the Ultimate Bar Book that was heavy on fruit juices with the booze on the back end of the palate. It was really close to what you'd get if you asked for a Mai Tai at Applebee's or an airport bar in Montana. The history of Planner's Punch goes way back to the colonial era in the Caribbean, when Caribbean planters were trying to figure out a way to keep cool in the sugar fields by mixing rum, sugar, and citrus.
I can't imagine drinking this in the heat of Jamaica while trying to work. It sounds like dehydration waiting to happen.
I said keep cool, not hydrated. Anyway, there are a few origin stories to Planner's Punch. One has it that the Planters Hotel in Charleston came up with it in the 1800s.
Not true.
And some like to say that Myers originated it, but I think that's just because Myers likes to bill themselves as a plantation rum.
Either way, not true.
Well, this drink most likely has its origins in the 18th century. The first recipe we ever hear of is in 1878 in a British magazine called Fun, with this poorly rhymed and rather clumsy verse.
A wine glass with lemon juice fill of sugar, the same glass fill twice, then rub them together until the mixture looks smooth, soft, and nice. Of rum, then 3 wine glasses add, of 4 of cold water please take, a drink then you'll have that's not bad. At least so they say in Jamaica.
Then the Kansas City Star came up with a little better verse in 1903 that went something like 1 of sour, 1 of sweet, 2 of strong, 1 of weak.
Kansas, of all places. Fucking Kansas.
But I've also heard 1 of sour, 2 of sweet, 3 of strong, 4 of weak.
So many choices.
So many. But whatever. Today we're taking our recipe from the Smuggler's Cove, Exotic Cocktails, Rum, and the Cult of Tiki by Martin and Rebecca Kate. Now, if you'll please turn the sacred text to page 258. Let's break out the booze. For this drink, we'll need a blended and aged rum. Tonight, I'm using Appleton Estate. Now, for the past week or so, I've been trying this drink with various kinds of rum. Some were slightly too funky.
Oh! Whew. Funky.
Some were just a tad too sweet.
Woo!
And some, well, just a bit too potent. I'm okay! In the end, I felt like the Appleton Estate had the best balance out of all my choices on hand. Then you'll need St. Elizabeth's Allspice Dram, Angostura Bitters, and you'll also need lime juice, Demerara syrup, and mint for a garnish. The mint's important. You need that for the nose. You get that mint smell when you're taking a sip. It really adds something. So don't leave out the mint. Don't skimp on the mint. Stingy bastards. Let's build this bitch. 3 ounces of your rum. Three-quarters of an ounce of allspice dram. 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. The recipe calls for a 1/4 ounce of Demerara sugar. I personally like mine a little sweeter, so I'm going to do half. And then 1 ounce of lime juice. Now, if you can, use freshly squeezed. I don't have that luxury right now. That's probably all right. Now in your cup, you're going to want crushed ice. So break out the old Lewis bag. Remember what I said about Lewis bags and crushed ice in the last episode. Time to get rid of all that anger and frustration. A little more rage. Fuck those guys. I'll wake that mint up to get some of the aromatics out of it. You don't need to beat it into an oblivion. Not the mint. And there it is. The Planter's Punch. Cheers, Dicks. That's good. It's got a level of sweetness to it, but it's not too sweet. Now remember, kind of rum you use will have a bearing on how sweet it is. I tried this with Pussers, and I love Pussers, but it was just too sweet. The St. Elizabeth Allspice Dram really adds a depth of flavor to this drink. It works really well with the Angostura bitters. And Appleton Estate, I think, really works well for this drink. It doesn't overpower it, but you really get the flavor from the rum. Appleton Estate is one of the better rums you can get for under $30, so I would suggest, get a bottle. It's good. Now, if you're into sweeter drinks, you can fuck with a Demerara syrup a little more or less, depending on how you like it. But like I said, this is really a class of drinks, not a set drink. So, whatever. Do whatever you want with it. It's not rocket surgery. Cheers, assholes. That's good. Speaking of surgery, I've had surgery twice while in the Navy. Both times on a ship, both times out at sea. And let me tell you, having surgery on a ship at sea while the operating room is bucking and swerving like a hooker working extra hard to make her money, well,
It adds another layer to the onion of terror. The first surgery was fairly soon after I reported to my first ship. The Iron Nickel, Cell Block 5, USS Will Fuck You. We done? USS Peloponnes, USS Peleliu. This surgery was to remove my wisdom teeth. The U.S. Navy has a love for removing wisdom teeth. Maybe they're afraid you'll wise up and realize how ridiculous some shit is. Like, say, sweeping water off the deck in the rain. For this surgery, they only use local anesthesia because they really want you to enjoy the full suite of sensations that are about to wreck your memories. The noises, the feelings. Now, Seaman Burks, this isn't going to hurt, but it's going to be a little uncomfortable and you are going to feel a little bit of pressure. The iron taste of blood and the sights. Oh my God, the sights. We were in heavy seas at the time and the ship was taking like 10 to 15 degree rolls. The surgeon would hover over me and wait for the ship to roll in towards me and brace himself with his foot. I wondered if he'd become an ace after getting 5. When he was done, he packed my mouth full of gauze, presumably so I couldn't tell any of my shipmates what kind of shit I just endured. Handed me a Percocet that I had to take in their presence, a little baggie of Motrin and one of those travel tubes of Crest toothpaste, along with an SIQ chit. It's a slip of paper that means I could be in my rack during working hours. For 12 hours. The joke here is that they finished this operation at 1600, so I wouldn't miss any duty anyway. And yes, they told me to drink water. Gotta stay hydrated while your mouth is gushing blood. Anyway, I had my wisdom teeth removed, and that was surgery number 1. My second surgery was a couple of years later, and it was a little more involved. I had to have a pilonidal cyst removed. Prior to surgery, I had to meet with a surgeon who was a commander with curly red hair, who looked like Danny Kaye and Barry Manilow had a baby. I don't remember too much from this meeting, but one quote does stick out. As he spoke, he looked me up and down, which was slightly uncomfortable and awkward. But then the words that came out of his mouth were definitely awkward and uncomfortable. Don't worry, QM3 Burks. This condition is quite common in men with large, hairy asses. No, he really said that. He went on to tell me that once the surgery was finished, there would be an open hole at the top of my ass crack that needed to be packed with gauze twice a day. He seemed to get some enjoyment out of asking me if I had a friend on board who would be willing to help me stuff my ass. So later that day, while at chow, I was sitting across from my best friend Luna, and for some reason I figured now, while eating, surrounded by a bunch of other guys, now would be the best time to talk about this impending surgery. So they're gonna cut a hole in my ass, and I'm gonna need to pack it with gauze for like 3 weeks. Would you be willing to pack my ass? My choice of words probably could have been better curated. Needless to say, heads, well, they turned. For this surgery, they put me in a sort of twilight anesthesia, so I was awake, but in a drug-induced stupor. That is, until I wasn't anymore. Yep. I woke up in a sudden moment of lucidity while they were still elbow deep in my ass. And that to date was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. They had to frenetically put me back under anesthesia. One might say they had to jump through the bleeding asshole to put me back out. After surgery, the nurse, who reminded me of Joan Cusack somehow, said that all through surgery I was serenading her with Elvis songs. Every time after that, when I'd pass her in the P-way, she'd give me a wink and a smile. In fact, a year or so later, the nurse met my soon-to-be wife and told her how nice it was to be serenaded while she was balls deep in my butt. No, I mean it. You can ask my wife. They had that conversation. Well, thankfully, and mercifully for Luna, I figured out how to pack gauze in my secondary asshole without help. Honestly, of all the things I thought I'd have to do in the United States Navy, coating a wad of gauze and Vaseline and shoving it in a hole in my ass that was made by some guy who seemed to enjoy talking about men with large hairy glutes was pretty far down the list. Even after all that, the joke wasn't over. A few weeks later, I was back at work in the pilot house. My chief walked in and he asked me if something had gotten done, and I told him no. And I told him why. And he just looked at me and he said, "Excuses are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and Burke says more than most." Well, that's a capital joke that never gets old. So what's the moral to this story? Well, I guess always have a friend who's prepared to stand ready, because you never know when you may need someone to pack your ass. Cheers, dicks.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning, way up she rises,
Henry VIII, I am. Nectar of the gods.
Jesus. Take 4. Fuck those guys. Why? Why is this not fucking working? Recipe from the Ultimate Bar Guide. Oh. And there it is. What are we drinking? Oh, yeah. Like I said. Prior to surgery, I had to meet with a surgeon. Oh, my back. Man ass.